on my attractiveness and how often men hit on me. And when I talked about women in politics, I said, well, I want you to be sure to ask all of the men that you interview about their attractiveness and how often they're hit on. But this is also important to me because this has been over 30 years in the making. Because over 30 years ago, I sat in the emergency room of a downtown hospital here after I had just been assaulted by my partner. And I sat in that emergency room alone with all of the tapes playing in my head that I deserved the beating, that there must have been something that I had done to cause him to harm me. And as I'm sitting there, doubting myself, being embarrassed that the police had come out, that the ambulance had come out, taken me to the hospital, trying to reassure the paramedics that I was all right, who were concerned that I had a closed brain injury. There was a white woman who came and sat down beside me, and she was bruised, had black eye, and she was also waiting for care to be seen. And I thought in my head, I'm not a battered woman. That's a battered woman. And so in the middle of the night, I got up, injured, too embarrassed to call anyone for help, and walked home. I had no money. The thing that frightened me most, which got me out of that situation, was meeting his mother because we were supposed to get married. And I saw myself 20 years into the future. And I decided then that that was not a future I wanted for myself. And so it was with the help of victim advocates in crowded shelters with not enough resources who bought me a ticket to get me home. Now, after that, after I got away with him, from him, later on in another relationship I had my son. And I became a single parent, a black Latina on welfare, raising a black male child. I learned to find my voice. I had been silent for so many years because who else was going to advocate for him but me? And even though I struggled on welfare, struggled to put food on the table, being humiliated paying with food stamps when people think you're stupid for being poor, for being a woman, for being black. I got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, got my law degree, and we know that black women are the most educated group. We get enrolled in college at the highest rates out there. We have always participated in the labor force, voluntarily or involuntarily. We have been workers. And yet, we also suffer under the burden of the greatest student loan debt. I can attest to that. I will die with my student loan debt. We also earn less than men. So in general, women earn 77 cents for the dollar of every man. But black women, it's even worse, about 65 cents. And Latinas, about 55 cents to the dollar. We have a gender inequity gap that is pervasive across this country and in this city. The gap is growing. To give you an idea, In the late 80s or so, we were about 95% behind white women. That has dramatically shifted. So while we can all stand together and say we're all women, we must also be aware of the inequities among women of color and white women. And it's even worse for women of color with disabilities. They can face a pay gap as great as 14 to 18% depending on the type of disability that they have. So even though this city, our politicians are bragging about the great economic boom that we are having, it is not reaching Black women.
There you go. Speak about it.
As a result, we need to be electing women of color to office. I was asked in my interview today, well, how come you don't get behind so-and-so for office as a good man? And I said, this is not about good men. This is about women speaking in our own voices, representing our own issues. It's time for women to be first in our voices and our issues, talking about the sexual assault that happens to us, talking about the domestic violence that happens to us, talking about the pay inequity. I look forward to a day that we have in Denver where we can actually look toward the women heading agencies so that we don't have to explain why sending sexting texts is sexual harassment. So I want to conclude today. I want you to just take a moment to imagine a Denver, a city, a government where women are represented in proportion to our population. Where we have leaders who will think about what does it mean to be a single mom when you can't afford childcare but you still have to go to work.
Yep.
What does it mean when you have a sick child and you have no one to care for and yet you still have to go clean someone's house? What does it mean to have women to set policy? What would it mean to have a gender-responsive approach to policy making? A trauma-informed approach so that we're not subjected to ridiculous decision leaders who say, well, do you believe her? We need to put victims in the center of that analysis, and Black women in the center of that analysis, and women of color in the center of that analysis, and disability and LGBTQ people in the center of that analysis. We don't have that in Denver right now. We need to elect women of color who will promote an agenda that reduces disparities and recenters the margins, to bring the women who have been pushed to the outside because you're too loud, you're too critical, you aren't grateful for when someone throws you crumbs.
Right.
We need instead to promote an agenda for equity and equality for all. Thank you.
I'll stop crying now. Oh, are you? Are we live?
We live, girl.
We live.
We live in the house.
Let's give it up again for Miss Calderon.
It's Calderon.
And pardon my faux pas, I should say doctor.
Yeah. Amen, sister.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Before we continue with
Probably
our
on
next
the
speaker,
side.
I want to take a moment to recognize a few people. First, I want to start by recognizing all Black